Greetings and salutations. Welcome to this episode of Playwright Spotlight. Before we begin, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment down below, and share the show with a friend. If you're listening to us on your favorite podcast platform, be sure to leave a 5-star review and subscribe to the channel. My guest today is an award-winning Connecticut playwright whose 10-minute works have been staged in his home state, as well as California, Florida, Massachusetts, New Jersey, Rhode Island, Texas, and via the British podcast Theatrical Shenanigans. He is a theater critic with the Outer Critics Circle and the Connecticut Critics Club. The Connecticut Critics Circle, and also runs the 24/7 online Broadway radio station, soundsofbroadway.com, featuring the best from off-Broadway, Broadway, and London stages. Plays include The Suitcase, House Hunted, and his newest play, Lady Jigsaw, received a stage reading at the Square One Theater in Stratford, Connecticut on July 10th, and will lead the Chestnut Playhouse Theater's 5th annual Playwriting Festival on September 5th. And we'll be sure to have that ticket link below in our show notes. But ladies and gentlemen, please welcome, once again, Stuart Brown.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, thanks you for coming back. So for those of you who don't know, which I did leave a couple posts on YouTube, is that we recorded this quite a few weeks ago, probably 3 weeks ago. And it turned out when I went to upload it this week, I had no audio whatsoever on my end, but you could hear Stu quite clearly. But without a lead-in question, it wouldn't have made much sense. So we might get to the same questions. I might come up with some new ones. So I guess one that I've got for you at this point, which I don't know if we covered, is what's the Connecticut market like there? Is it a strong theater market or?
So I was told, I don't know by whom, that Connecticut has more theaters per capita, per square mile than any other state in the country. And that includes regional theaters, equity theaters, community theaters. We have dozens of theaters in this state.
And that's a small state too.
Yes.
So
yes. And we have, for people that watch the Tony Awards or might know about regional theaters, we have Tony Award winning theaters every year. The Tony Awards gives out Best Regional. We have the Goodspeed Opera House, which is the only regional theater that has ever received the award twice.
Oh, wow.
That theater originated a show some of you might have heard of, like Man of La Mancha, wow. Annie, all originated there.
Really?
So,
wow.
Yes. So we have a lot of history. Some of the first summer stock was in Connecticut. So okay. Very rich history.
So I'm assuming that when you heard that, it's proved to be true in your mind.
Yes. I could, if I reviewed theater, if I included community theater, I could probably be going to the theater once a week, every week, all year. But I have other things to do.
Like write plays?
Right. So I primarily go to let's say the equity theaters, the more professional theaters.
Sure.
In the state.
How do you find that market's been welcoming to you as a playwright?
I'm going to say yes and no. I have had a number of my plays staged in Connecticut. I've had a number of theater companies with my 10-minute plays devote a whole weekend of my plays. And I give out my 10-minute plays to theaters all over the country. Wow. So let's say someone is listening in Wyoming and they have a theater company. They could use all my 10-minute plays because I encourage them to use them as a fundraiser. Last year, this one theater raised over $2,000. Next week, so this Lady Jigsaw, that's on September 5th. Well, on September 12th, a theater in Connecticut is doing 9 of my 10-minute plays. So some theaters have been very welcoming.
Does that include Lady Jigsaw?
No, these are strictly 10-minute plays. So I have my 10-minute plays, and then I have a couple of one acts. So Lady Jigsaw is the one that is let's say, in the forefront of theaters staging them right now.
Well, on that note, just before I forget, I'll throw it out there now. Please send me the link, the ticket link to your stuff on the September 12th, because since this episode is coming out so much later than we intended, those who can't make it on September 5th can try to make it to the series on September 12th.
Yep. You will get everything.
Do you find that being a critic in Connecticut hurts or helps you in the area? Oh gosh,
yeah.
Stuart Brown. I don't, you know.
I'm going to say it can be both.
Okay.
So it can help me because since I've been reviewing theater in the state for such a long time, I know a lot of the artistic directors. I mean, when they'll see me, they know me, I know them. So I don't have to have these awkward introductions. I can go up to someone. However, it is a little awkward because I'm reviewing their plays.
Right.
And so some people have been, we don't care, or, this is great. There's one theater that has sort of let it be known that, there needs to be some distance between us. So it can hurt, but probably I would say 70-30 on the help side.
Okay. Have you ever submitted and do you feel you've been rejected because you might have given a harsh review at some point?
I'm a softie, so that never happens.
Okay.
No,
but okay.
I haven't had that. And I will say there are some theaters that will have theater writing or playwriting competitions, right, and I will send them. And some of the community theaters don't really know me, and so I'm just thrown in with the other 200 submissions. But I think if a theater does have a set playwriting submission process, it doesn't matter whether I'm a critic or not. It would just go through their normal channels, sure, and submission policies.
And you don't use a stage name in either of your reviews, or okay?
No, it's Stu Brown or Stuart Brown.
Okay. Now you said you're a softie. Does that mean? I'm assuming that you're still honest, but your phrasing is kind of.
So I will say I'm not necessarily a softie. However, a number of years ago, I was at a theater critic conference in New York, and there was a panel of playwrights. So you had playwrights and an audience of theater critics, oil and vinegar there. And these weren't just John Doe playwrights. These were Marcia Mason, who wrote Night Mother, the book for The Color Purple, David Lindsay-Abaire, who Pulitzer Prize winner. These were very, very well-known people. And David Lindsay-Abaire said something that has always resonated. He said, we're human. So if you're going to be snarky or something, that can hurt. And he also said, we do read reviews. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, he's reading my review in Connecticut. Oh my, so I better be careful. But the point is, you can say something without showing off or being really snarky or rude.
Sure.
What I do, if I don't like something, I will explain why. So I'm not going to crucify you for it, but it's like, well, this didn't resonate, or the sound, or something. So I'm going to give you an explanation. And I think the theaters appreciate that, you're not just saying something without really backing it up.
Now, do you try to hit all aspects of the production?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So if for a musical, I try not to say, oh, I have a formula, but it's going to be primarily the acting, directing, the score. I want to look at the set, maybe the sound, the story, and with a play, the same type of thing. But obviously, there's no score in a straight
Sure.
play.
So, and I know this might be different in Connecticut than it might be in other places, but for what's the best advice you can give to a theater company that's trying to get a critic in the seats to review their show?
So I think it's reaching out. Some states will have associations. Others, it's identifying. And most of the professional theaters, they have their opening night critic list. So it's really, I think, for theaters nowadays, it's going beyond the people like me. I mean, who are the people on TikTok? Who are the people on Instagram that you might want to bring in because they are connecting with a different audience than maybe who's going to read a blog or something, or even Facebook, with certain under 30 or something. Facebook is like, no one uses Facebook. So, can these theater companies reach out to bring those individuals in and potentially bring in an untapped audience?
Sure. What about, does the length of the run make a difference? Like, you're going to see something that's only running for a weekend and still review it, even though the audience wouldn't be able to see it? Or do you have like a minimum where it's like, look, in order for this to be worth my time, I need it to at least be 3 or 4 weeks.
Right. And most of the professional theaters do that. They'll have, but a lot of them have cut back. So where it used to be Wednesday through Sunday matinee, now it might be Thursday through Sunday matinee, or maybe even just Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, but it might be 3 weekends. Right. So, we try, but even though it's a small state, it ends up, you might have 2 or 3 theaters opening the same weekend. So I can't go this weekend. I have to go to the second weekend.
Right. Do you read other critics' work that's not about your show or about your work? Like, as a critic, you were reading other critics' works that aren't necessarily reviews of your play. So
I do read a few of my colleagues' reviews, and just because I think a few of them write so well, or like we have one critic and he writes a very lengthy review, and he always brings up great points. I'm like, I wish I would have said that. Oh, that's so good. And then I have another colleague who writes a 1-page review, but it's so well written and everything that needs to be said is said in that 1 page. So I like to read these to see if I can learn something for when I'm writing my reviews.
Sure. Now, we've covered that. Because I do want to, of course, be on Playwright Spotlight, so you're here to talk about your playwriting. So what came first, the critic, being the critic, and then the playwright, and then how has being a theater critic helped your writing as a playwright?
Right. So I've been reviewing Connecticut and New York theater for decades. So I was definitely doing that before. My playwriting, I really started it after I retired because I had time. Sure. And what I like to feel with my playwriting in regards to being a critic is knowing when to pull back on my writing, that I could write a page or a scene and it's like, this is great, this is funny, it doesn't really fit, but wow, look at me. So knowing when to cut and knowing that the audience needs to be entertained and there needs to be some arc to it. With all my 10-minute plays, I have a twist at the end, and no one sees those twists coming. And so even though it's 10 minutes, there's a beginning, there's a middle, and there's the end. The same thing with my fuller one acts is keeping the audience engaged. What is something that I put in that's going to perk your interest, or you didn't see coming, or I had an email from the director of my play Lady Jigsaw today, and they had a tech rehearsal last night, and she was saying the soundboard operator just loved, and it was loved in capital letters, loved the show, and it even brought a tear to her eye. And so I'm thinking, wow, this is the soundboard person watching a tech rehearsal.
Sure.
So I like to think that maybe I've learned sort of the mechanics, but to keep people interested.
So what you mentioned a few, and then how do you execute those? And when you talk about engagement, what is engagement overall, or what's the secret, or is there a trick to engagement?
I think it's depending upon the story. So how can you zig and zag as opposed to just going straight? So are you introducing a new character? Is there an illness or something with the family, or there's a momentous thing that happens towards the end of Lady Jigsaw, which I can 100% guarantee people in the audience, they don't scream, but there's the intake of breath. It's like, oh, because of what I have. There's one part talking about being at a doctor's office because of a cancer diagnosis. And I had cancer 12 years ago. I can't remember.
Sorry to hear that.
But thanks. But everything's fine and dandy.
Good.
But when I'd go to the doctor, my wife would be there with a notebook, and she would be taking all the notes, answers to questions, because either I wasn't necessarily paying attention or maybe not in the best mood. So I called it the little blue book. In Lady Jigsaw, I incorporate that, and there's a discussion. And at one of the stagings, I was in the front row, and I could hear the people behind me whispering under their breath, yeah, because they did the exact same thing. So it's putting those type of things in that is going to be very relatable to the office, in addition to the twists and turns.
Before you sit down to write the story you've decided on, have you already decided the twist before you start writing, or do you insert the twist at the end?
I like to have an idea. I take notes, but when you're writing, you don't necessarily follow the path you thought you were going to follow all the time.
Right.
You get an idea, or so while I was writing this, my wife and I went to a funeral home because we wanted to talk about cremation versus burial, and being Jewish, and there's issues and blah, blah, blah. And so I took some of those discussions, and I was like, oh, wow, this is great stuff. So I incorporated that into the play. Now, did I plan to do that? No, I never even thought of that. So things will pop up that I think would work well, and I'll squeeze them in.
Sure. Okay. Now, when we want to go back to the engagement part, because you mentioned introducing certain things. Now, are you doing that in both the longer plays and the shorter ones to keep that engagement?
So with the shorter ones, it's a little easier because they're like nine and a half to 10 pages. But I think it's even sometimes more important because you just can't waste time.
Right.
I mean, you don't have 2 pages of, let's say, throwaway dialogue or something because it's so short. So I always have, for the 10-minute, I always have the twist. And then I have a beginning, and it's the middle part that, as I'm sitting at the computer, where things will come to me, After I finish a draft, I put it aside and something else might come, or I give it to someone to read and they go, "Oh, that was really good. Oh, did you think of this?" I'm like, "Wow, that is a great idea." But the 10-minute, the beginning, I know, and then the twist, because the twist can be sort of the hardest part, so I really want to make sure I have that set.
Okay. Do you follow a formula? Are there certain things, like, especially like for a 10-minute play, it's like, this has got to happen by page 2, this has got to be happened by page 6, and then the twist is at 9, and the conclusions at 10.
I don't have a formula. I think it's evolved, you could say, into a formula where the first couple of pages you want to set the tone, where it's happening, but then pretty much by page 3 get into the gist of it. So you have a couple of pages of sort of the back and forth, and getting to the point where you can set up the twist, which might be the last page, might be the last page and a half, because a lot of times I want the twist almost like the very last thing that's said, or the last 2 or 3 interactions between the characters, because I think that's going to grab people more than if it's like this extended twist. It'll lose some of the impact.
Sure. Okay, that's understandable. All right. What makes a good twist?
Something you are totally not expecting. Or I have this one play, and people, I'll say 90% of the people, there are always people, "Oh, I knew that was going to happen," or "I knew this," but 90% of the people think, "Oh, this is what the play is about, and it's moving towards this ending." And in this one, the twist actually starts a little earlier because there's a buildup. But once that twist is revealed, you get people in the audience going, "Ah," out loud, because they didn't see it coming. But the twist, like I said, is really, I want you to shake your head, almost to say, "You got me."
Have you ever changed your twist? The intended, and say, no.
I'm going to say I haven't changed it. There was one play, and this is a director putting a slight spin on it, and so they ended it. Just the twist was there. The character was doing something different, and I was like sitting in the audience going, "Ooh, I like that." So I wrote that in because I think it gave it even more of an impact than the way I had done it.
Do you have a how frequently do you write? Let me ask you that.
I try and write something every day, every other day. I mean, I have a lot, as I've told a lot of my friends that are retired, don't look at me because I'm oversubscribed in doing things. In fact, I just started a new podcast venture yesterday. Okay. So Congrats. My father passed away a year and a half ago at 95, and he liked to write, and he had a couple of volumes of memoirs. So I'm starting to narrate the memoirs, incorporating stories in this. So that's just something else, because I've no time. I mean, I have so much time. So I do try and write. I have a friend of mine who I've known for over 60 years. He's a musician. Last year he said, "Stu, we should write a musical together." And I said, "Sure." So a couple of months ago, I called him up. I said, "Okay, I'm ready." So I'm at the very early stages of flesh. We have an idea. Okay. I'll send it to him. And then I have a new murder mystery. So my other play is called Conduct unbecoming, that's done. But I like murder mysteries, and I think if it can be done well on stage, it's a lot of fun.
Sure.
So I'm at the beginnings of trying to figure out the plot and the characters and all that. So I do try at least every other day to do some type of writing.
And what's your process when you're writing a play? I mean, do you have everything outlined? You just have the story and the twist, and then just like, I'm going to start writing and then see where it goes and then edit from there?
Yeah. So I'm going to jot down notes about plot lines, characters, and when I feel I have enough that I can start where I'm at, knowing as I write, things are going to change or I'm going to add in a lot. But at least I have a direction I want to go. For the murder mystery, it has to just be, I would say, a little more plotted out, because I want to know where things are. But even that can change somewhat.
Got it. You mentioned how detailed, when you said you're writing notes about your characters, how detailed are you getting at that? Or is just like a few blurbs, a couple sentences or two that just kind of
Right. So I don't want to, I'm not going to do, like, let's say, a 1-page character study.
Sure.
But I'll know that this character is going to be this type of person or that type of person. And with the Lady Jigsaw, it seems from the reaction of people that have heard it that I've succeeded in making them into more 3-dimensional characters. So I have an idea, might take a few notes, but it's combining the character with the story that I think is important.
What makes a 3-dimensional character? And how do you achieve it?
Boy, you're asking tough questions here.
I'm trying to recreate that excitement.
Well, I think, it's someone who you might think is one way, but they're more layered. There's more to them than just being the crabby old lady. Well, what's the underlying, what's her backstory? Oh, she had a husband who she loved and lost. And oh, this woman who she has a feud with. Well, here's why there's that feud. So to really broaden their background in addition to who they are. And I think the more you can do that, the more people are going to relate to them and feel some type of connection with them.
And are you just sprinkling that information throughout rather than just giving this huge monologue? This is this is why I'm the way I am, kind of a thing.
Yes. And I think that is something that playwrights probably can fall into, is the summation monologue or this long monologue. Right. And I know if I'm in the audience and, unless this is written by someone who's really, really good, it's going to get really, really boring fast. So I think it's important to understand. And that's why when you can have a table read or a stage reading, you can hear that. And what I'm very fortunate, I have 2 people that I value their opinions very highly. So if they say to me, Stu, this, or I'm not connecting it, I might explain it to them and they might say, oh no, okay, now I understand. But they might also say, I don't get it, or that's not resonating. So I need to work on it.
Okay. Did you have a learning curve even though you have had so much involvement in the theater?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I think when you, any new venture, there's always a learning curve. I think for me was having sometimes too much fun with like back and forth dialogue.
Right.
Like, oh, this is so witty. Oh, this is so funny. But the audience, after maybe half of what I've written, that's enough. You need to move on. So I think there definitely was a learning curve. And that's why, again, having people read things. So for Lady Jigsaw, that started out as a 2-character play. And I thought it worked well. And the people that read it said, this is good, Stu, but it could be expanded a little. It's okay. Writing a 2-character play is not easy. So it's like, okay. So I added a 3rd character. And the 3rd character was the administrator of this senior retirement complex. And I made this administrator really mean and gave it to my readers. And they said, no, this is an improvement, but would someone who doesn't like senior citizens really work at a senior citizen place? And I said, sure they could. And then I was like, well, so I added a 4th character. And that, to me, really solved the problem. So now the administrator was someone who was a by the rules person, but was just was a nice administrator. And I could make this 4th character to be in a adversarial relationship with the other female character, and at the same time flirting with the male character. So all these different interactions are happening, and it really made a better play. So as far as the learning curve, it was, okay, Stu, just because you wrote something doesn't mean it can't be improved. Right. And so that's what I've been doing ever since.
Okay. And were there any obstacles you had to overcome?
In regards,
just to really like, I had this bad habit, like not just to talk about characters where it's just like, I have it. And I don't know if we could say the witty dialogue, not knowing when to stop is part of that, but I don't know. It may be bad habits you had to break.
I think it's, like I said, knowing when to stop and maybe trying to step back to be the audience member to say, is this going to, at least do I think this is going to maintain interest, that it's just not this boring scene of dialogue, that, to always be aware of the audience and what can I do to make it exciting, suspenseful, whatever.
Well, I would imagine as a theater critic, it's a lot easier for you to imagine being an audience member and take that into consideration.
I like to think that because I've seen hundreds of shows, like this worked, that didn't work. Make sure you don't do that.
So going back to the monologue and going back to being witty and overdoing it, when do you know when to end your monologue, or how long what's too long? Yeah. And then I want to talk about the length of wit as well. Separate questions.
Yeah, I would say if, let's say, and I do this for a number of my plays where there's a certain situation and let's say the husband, and it should be directed in a very quick repartee. So the husband says X, the Y, the husband responds, the wife responds, maybe 3 times back and forth, maybe 4, and then it has to stop. You've kind of like made your point. You've kind of been funny. Let's start something new.
Okay. And then going for the monologue, I mean, how much in your professional opinion, how much information should come out of that monologue? I mean, obviously only what's necessary, but
Yeah, I think you want to have some, but you don't want to put every single thing that has happened or will happen or should happen in this one monologue. So I would say, for example, in Lady Jigsaw, there might be a part where someone is talking about their spouse that passed away, or this is why my relationship with my kids. So there's that piece, but there was dialogue leading up to that. So when the character is saying this, I would like to think the audience is listening because of everything that preceded it. So now, okay, now you're telling us like the big reveal, or so
Right.
as I said, these two women have this antagonistic relationship, and that's throughout the entire play, and it's never explained. And there's some hints, but it's never explained. And then at one point, one of the characters says, pretty much like, "What's going on between you two?" And she finally feels comfortable with this male character. She says, "Here's what happened." So I would hope the audience is like, not at the edge of their seats, but they're going,
Sure.
"Oh, okay. I'm really curious because throughout the whole show, they've just been sniping at each other. Now you're going to tell me why."
Right. I mean, and there, I'm assuming those sprinkled hints are there through,
Yes.
you're kind of
Right.
it's alluded to here and there. Okay. What there was one of the so I wanted because we were just talking about, not to bounce around all over the place, but going back to witty banter. So I get it, like maybe 3 or 4 times and that's enough. But what about like something like the game of questions in Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead? I mean, that goes on for quite a while. Do you think that it just because that works, or do you think that it could have stopped earlier? I don't know.
Well, I would probably say for me, yes, but this is a classic play. Who am I to think otherwise? But I think it's good, but I think also you have to look at the whole play, and I think that whole play lends itself more to that,
Okay.
than something that is going to be, more linear.
Got it. Okay. All right. Your love of murder mystery. How do you approach that?
So that I do take more notes,
Right.
because for my murder mystery, I have 6 characters. So I wanted them to have identities, and everyone that has read it has like this. There's this one character who's just a real jerk, and they go, "He's such a jerk." I could say, "Good," because that's what he's supposed to be. So I want to get the characters, and then it's really the plot. I mean, because I need to know at certain plot points, or I don't know, maybe this says something about me, but I want to murder a whole bunch of the characters. I have, like, one of my colleagues said, "Stu, there are a lot of murder mystery tropes in this. And is that, I don't know if that's going to work." And I said, that's the whole point of this play. So, I don't want to give it away in case one day someone sees it, but, there's a lot of screams. There's a lot of, sort of like gotcha moments for the audience where they're going to scream, or they're going to react. And then there's I think a nice twist at the end.
It wouldn't be a Stuart Brown play if there wasn't.
Right. It has to have that twist. And so with this murder mystery, I'm starting to work on, I have an idea, but then I was thinking today, it's like, oh, what if I do this? And even though you're not supposed to do that, but I think I could do this, and questioning. So it might be a multiple twist.
Okay.
So this is the murder mysteries will take longer, but
Of course, yeah, absolutely.
But I just think if I can do it right, it's a lot of fun.
Are you finding that 6 characters is enough without giving the big reveal?
In regards to the murder
Yeah.
mystery?
Yeah.
Yes. Oh yeah. Yeah. And I try, there are a couple of characters I'm trying to build in that this person could have, or gee, this person wasn't here, and how did you appear? And so I'm trying to do some misdirection.
Okay.
So and so far the people that have read it have not figured it out. So like I was rereading Agatha Christie's The Mousetrap the other day,
Mm-hmm.
and I saw a production at one of the top theaters in Connecticut, and I had seen it in London decades ago, and I remember thinking, I can't believe this thing keeps running, because it's kind of I didn't think it's a great murder mystery, and I remember seeing it in Connecticut, and halfway through I was like, oh yeah, this is the murderer. Because I like murder mysteries, and it to me, it all worked out. Now, the friend I went with, he had no clue. And he was like, wow, I'm surprised. And I was like, really? But this happened, and this, and so, that's what I want to try and do, is keep it. I think 6 is good. Less would be fine, but I think 6 is good. And one thing that Agatha Christie said, and the reason why she started writing her own stage plays, is because she felt that people were adapting her work and making it overcomplicated. And she said, you have to make it not simple, but understandable for the audience. So you can't have, 12 characters, or you can't have so many different scene changes and whatever. It's like, try. And so my goal is to keep it into a one set murder mystery, which also makes it more producible.
Sure. Yeah, of course. Absolutely. Do you just take a traditional murder mystery approach, or do you do noir as well?
I know last time we talked about this, and I'm not a, as far as definition of noir,
if it can't even be defined, but yeah.
Okay. Oh, then I am, sure. But I think I'm more the traditional murder mystery. Yeah. So in my Conduct Unbecoming, there is no detective. In my new murder mystery, there are going to be 2 detectives. So, but it's going to be more traditional, maybe more, I'll say, the cozy British murder mystery, even though this doesn't happen in Britain. But
she's an international student,
right? But as long as I have, there'll always be a couple of murders,
sure,
a couple of people dropping dead. So,
okay, yeah, no, I mean, to touch on the noir aspect again, and the only reason I said I don't think it can be defined is because there's a continual argument that there's no consistent. We know what a Western is, and it's not always a private detective. Sometimes it's a reporter, sometimes a photographer.
Right.
A murder does not a noir make, so it's, it's not always it's not always the city. Could be in out in the middle of nowhere in the, on a deserted highway, detour.
Yeah.
So
I guess I like when I'm writing a murder mystery, to try and have interesting characters, and to have a number of red herrings.
Sure.
To leave clues that not necessarily someone very astute is going to go, I know what's happening, and it's only page 60 or something. But I want it to be at the summation that when the murderer is explaining something, or someone is, that the audience is just nodding their head like, oh, I didn't see that coming, which is what makes a great Agatha Christie play and book. It's like, you don't see that coming.
How does, I don't know which way to phrase this. How do you write a red herring, or what are the rules of a red herring? And you can answer.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, I don't know, let's say, I don't know the rules, but something where I'm leading the audience in a certain direction, maybe with a character who is doing something strange, or why are they there, or why did they come out of that room, or something to try and push suspicion to them.
Okay.
So it confuses the audience a little of who am I choosing?
Okay. And then if you're doing multiple, do you introduce the second one prior to revealing the first and have two going before you reveal either one? Or does it matter?
I don't think it matters. I think what probably is best is, if I'm going to present them, then it waits maybe to the end.
Okay.
Because that way you're building up the suspense.
Sure.
So if you got rid of the red herring, I mean, maybe you could. I mean, if I had, I don't know, 5 red herrings, let's get rid of one. But if there's 2 or 3, as we get closer to the finale, they can start to be revealed, or someone can say, well, no, I'm this, or whatever.
So how far into the beginning do you plant that red herring? And then you said you won't wait until a good portion, until almost the end?
Yeah. Well, like for this conduct unbecoming, I don't want to say it's a red herring, but I'm starting to introduce questions and doubt about a certain character, very shortly in, like maybe by page 15, just little doubts are coming to the fore.
Is this a 1-act, or is this going to be a 2-act?
So I originally had it as a 2-act, and then my friend, he's a former artistic director, he said, Stu, why don't you just do this, forget the intermission, just plow right through. So, well, I think it's nice to have the intermission. It probably works better straight through, because that way, whatever tension I might be building continues, as opposed to, okay, time to get that cocktail or the raisinets or whatever you're going to get, and then you have to get everyone back in the mood.
Right. Okay.
So it'll be, I don't know, I think it's like 70, 80 minutes.
Okay. It seems like that's a good aim for playwrights these days, is to keep it, or maybe it's not even the goal of playwrights. Maybe it's just, that's what people are looking for, because the audience can't keep their attention.
So I always, I'll tell people I'm going to see a 3.5 hour play, and automatically moans and goes, oh my gosh, how can you do that? Whatever. And I always say, I have seen 3-hour plus shows that go by so fast. I have seen 85-minute shows that just like put me out of my misery right now. I mean, they are just so boring. They're so bad. So to me, length has nothing to do with a good show.
Right.
If it's well written and well acted, don't end.
Okay.
And
so we touched on it last time, about your curating, if you will, the soundsofbroadway.com. Tell me about that.
So Sounds of Broadway, soundsofbroadway.com, 24/7 online Broadway radio station. As my tagline, I playing the best from off-Broadway, Broadway, the London stage, music that you're familiar with. So Wicked, West Side Story, Music Man, but also music from obscure shows or shows you've never heard of, but have great music. So I like to put all that together. I would say there are other online radio Broadway stations. They play the same music, the same shows. They pat themselves on the back when they play not an obscure show, maybe a show that you haven't heard of from the 1970s, but was actually had a fairly good run. So I like to put in everything. And so, yeah, I curate the playlists. I put together blocks of 3-hour playlists.
Okay.
And then I position them throughout the week, thinking if you're in Australia, a 4 a.m. to 7 a.m. playlist is going to be whatever, that night or something.
Right.
So I might take a playlist Monday, 4 a.m. to 7 a.m., Wednesday, 2 to 5, Sunday, 11 to 2. Because you're probably not going to be listening at all the different times. So,
right.
But it's, I have over, 800 cast albums. So wow. There are thousands of songs like within my database, and I have my favorites, and I will have the better known shows, more of them.
Right.
But there'll be shows, and I want you, the listener, to say, wow, I never heard that. It was a great song, or these were great songs from that show.
And where are you finding? Are you just finding these online? These albums?
I've been collecting for 50 years. So a lot of what I have, some used record stores, some people have given me some online, and the record companies have been very good at sending me the new ones. So, for example, yesterday I just got the cast album to the musical Mystic Pizza. So everyone might know the movie, but they made a musical that never went to New York, but plays regionally all the time. And it's a jukebox musical.
Okay.
But they just put out a cast album.
So you're getting support from the record companies rather than, what are you doing? Why are you can't use that?
Right.
What do you think that is?
Well,
I don't mean an insult, but it's like most of the time it's like they're greedy and no, you can't use it and you have to pay us rights and
Right. Well, for them, you put out a cast album. I mean, yes, there are people that collect, but cast albums don't sell. So here I am saying, I'm going to play selections from your cast album. So maybe you hear it, and with now people might not buy the whole cast album. They can go to whatever, download and cherry pick, sure. But it's still going to sell the music. So I like to think they look at me as one of the very few outlets, because this is 24/7. This isn't just like I used to do a 3-hour Broadway radio program at my college. It's not just 3 hours once a week. This is 24/7, 7 days a week.
And so, how you said it takes you 3 hours to curate, or how long does it take you to curate those 3 hours?
Probably from actual everything about it, probably 4.5 hours.
Okay.
Because I have this huge spreadsheet, and so I just go through, and so it's taking the songs. So let's say 3 hours, 48 songs. So I have to come up with picking the 48 songs. Then I have to put them in some type of order.
Right.
That for whatever reason. So now I have them in order. Now I have to do the sound bites between, let's say, every 3 songs where I'm going to recap. And I just don't do that, but I'm going to give you maybe a fun fact, a trivia question,
Okay. I was
history
wondering
about the show. So all of that, probably 4.5, maybe, to make myself a martyr, maybe up to 5 hours for every 3 hours I program.
And you do that once a week?
I do it once every other week because I've been doing this for a number of years now. So let's say I scheduled these playlists in the second week of May. Well, if I rerun that this coming week, if you happen to listen in May, are you going to remember the songs? No. So because I now have this repository of playlists going back for years, I can rerun some in addition to incorporating the newer playlists.
So do you repeat a 3-hour program within that 24 hours, or do you have the 8 different ones?
Right. So I will not repeat. Well, sometimes I might repeat, if I do a 4 a.m. to 7 a.m., I might repeat that 5 p.m. to 8 p.m.
Got it. Okay.
Because
that makes sense.
The odds are no one is. If you listen at 4 a.m., you're still not up by 5 p.m. But I do try and switch it. So if that Monday 7 to 10 a.m. playlist is throughout the week. So maybe on a Wednesday at some point and on a Sunday at some point.
Okay. Before I get to the usual 3 questions, is there anything offhand that we might have touched on the last time that you remember and that you wanted to touch base on again?
No, you've been very thorough. I will send you the links.
Please
the link
do.
For the Lady Jigsaw and for this other theater the following week. But nope, you've been very thorough. And I hope I met your expectations for a second time.
You thoroughly did, because we covered in I think we covered a lot more tougher, a lot tougher material, which is always hard to do. I always joke that in these episodes, I'll always ask a question that's difficult to ask because you're not in the throes of writing at that moment. So it's just I couldn't tell you right now,
Yeah.
So, but yeah, of course you delivered. So,
okay.
You already covered a little bit, but just in case you didn't cover all of everything, what are you working on right now? In case there's anything that that you might have left out.
Yeah. So the main thing right now, well, the 2 things are this musical and, but really the murder mystery is when I have time, and I want to focus on that because, like I said, if I can do it right, I think it's a lot of fun.
Now, are you and your musical partner, are you collaborating in person yet? Or are you both kind of taking it's or that early in the game?
Yeah, and so I'm in Connecticut, he's in New Jersey, and the lyricist, I think, is in New Jersey. I think most of the stuff is really going to be done over Zoom, or I email snippets or different scenes to them. They might email me back, and then when there's enough, we can talk. And that's the great thing about Zoom now, is you don't have to be in person, because in a sense you are in person.
Right. Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't foresee maybe this would happen where, we all feel we need to be in the room together to work on something, maybe to hammer out something, and it doesn't work with Zoom. So it's hey, you know what? Let's take this Sunday from, I don't know, 9 to 8, and we're just going to be in the room with a keyboard, and we're just going to, work things out.
Okay. All right. Well, best of luck. I'm sure that'll come together nicely between the three of you.
Yeah.
Where can people find your work?
So I have a website, which again, I will send you. It's very easy. And I am shocked because I just put this up like a month ago that this domain name was still available. So it's Stuart J. Brown. So STUART J. Brown.com.
Wow.
Very easy. And everything is there. So if you're a theater company and you're like, hey, I want to use your 10-minute plays for a fundraiser, everything is there. All my one acts, they're there. You can download the opening scenes. So see if it resonates with you. Okay.
And then I don't even think we touched base on it because I don't think it's in your bio. Do you have any published work that's out there that people can, through like a applause or anything? Or you just keep it all?
I do have a middle school novel, and that is also on the website, and you can download the first few chapters. But if anyone out there knows if they've written a book, trying to find a literary agent is just as hard, if not harder, than getting your play on a stage reading. It's very difficult. And it's my first novel. I think it's good. A lot of people have read it, but it's probably could use some polishing. But right now, that's on the back burner because of my other stuff. But that the play is the book is also on that website. Okay.
And then lastly, are you on the socials?
I am. And I have to remember, I'm on just Instagram. And that's primarily for my like publishing. Okay. So let's see, what is my? It's
Stuart at Stuart J. Brown.
Yeah, right. So it's Stuart J. Brown _author.
Okay. All right. Wonderful.
And so that I put stuff up there. I'm of a generation that I do some of it, but it's not my big thing.
I'm getting to that point as well. It's hard to jump on the socials and even self-promote it. Just sometimes it's
Yep.
I don't know. Maybe it's a generational thing because I'm just like, just come see it. I don't know.
And it takes time. It's not something that in 5 minutes. I mean, even just doing a post or so what I need is an influencer who's going to say, wow, Stu, everything you're doing is great. I'm going to take you under my wings. Great. Okay. You do all the work. Yeah.
I'm old school. I mean, I just did a production over at my place of work, and I'm just like, I'm just going to make postcards and hand them out because I don't know. There's something about that, having that physical reminder.
Yeah. All right. I hear you.
Well, I wish you the best of luck tomorrow night at the Chestnut, and then on the 12th at. Are you going to both?
Yeah, I'll be at both. So the 12th is called the Arts at Angloria's. Okay. And I'll send you again the website. But that's if you're in the greater Southington, Connecticut area, because it's 9 10-minute plays, and 4 of them haven't been staged.
That's exciting.
But I met with the actors, and they were just loving it, and the audiences that I've been to have always laughed at the right places.
Great. I love it. I love it. Well, thank you for being flexible and being willing to do this late at night, your time.
Problem.
And Stuart Brown, thanks for coming on to this episode of Playwright Spotlight.
Well, thank you for having me.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of Playwright Spotlight. Again, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment down below, and share the show with a friend. If you're listening to us on your favorite podcast platform, be sure to leave a 5-star review and subscribe to the channel. And in the meantime, until we see each other again, keep writing.